This is the second part of Muhammad history. Mr. Osman, what happened to Muhammad after Khadija died?
His life completely changed because you see, since he married her, he was younger, 15 years younger than her. She was a prominent character in Mecca, a rich lady and well-known from a well-known family, and she gave him more or less protection in the society. They did not agree with him, but they kept him because of her and because of his uncle Abu Talib. But his uncle and his wife died in the same kind of month, and he became lost, really. His earlier followers were...
Was he a prophet at that time?
Yeah, he has been a prophet for about 10 years when she died.
Okay.
He became a prophet when he was 40 years of age, and when she died about 10 years later or so. And so he became lost, and the Meccan people of Quraysh, the tribe of Quraysh of Mecca, persecuted him and his followers. And he was, some stories say that he even, was thinking of suicide or something. He was completely desperate. But suddenly, one time at the Hajj, because all the tribes come to Mecca once a year for Hajj, after Ramadan and so on. So Banu Najjar, his maternal uncle, the uncles of his grandfather from Medina, Banu Najjar. A group of them came to Mecca and met him, and while after 10 years in Mecca, nobody really followed him except few people of his friends. These people came and shake hands with him, said, "We believe in you. We would like to protect you. Come to leave Mecca, come to Medina, and we will protect you and will help you. We believe in you." This was very surprising because, he even had no chance to preach them of what Islam is. You see, I have to explain why is it. In fact, Banu Najjar were Jews, but not from the rabbinic group. In Mecca, in Medina, there were 3 major rabbinic Jewish tribes.
What is the rabbinic Jewish?
The Orthodox Jewish tribes. But there also were 2 major Arab tribes, and this Banu Najjar were connected, were not living with the Jews, but with one of the Arab tribes, you see, because they were, in fact, according to my investigation, they came from Judea after the Romans in the year 70 AD destroyed the temple and persecuting all the Jews and forbade them. Jews went to different parts of the Roman Empire, and people wondered, where did the Essenes of the Dead Sea Scrolls go? They were a small group living in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and disappeared completely after the Roman war. But I believe that the Essenes, a small group, there were about 4,000 to start with, they spread, and some of them crossed the river Jordan into East Jordan and down into Medina. And this Banu Najjar, I think, were Judo-Christians. This is the same, they have the same teaching of the Essenes of Judea, of the Qumran sect. In fact, Najjar in English means carpenter. Banu Najjar, carpenter. And it seems, it could be, I am not sure of that, but it could be they could have been related to the Joseph who married Mary, the mother of Jesus. He was called Joseph the carpenter, Joseph al-Najjar. So they could have belonged to the same family of this character, you see. Anyhow, they were Judeo-Christians, so it's in the same, they believed in the Moses law, the law of Moses, the Ten Commandments and so on, and they also believed in a teacher of righteousness, although they don't name him, but they believe in the teacher of righteousness who eventually became to identify with Jesus Christ, you see. However, you see, unlike the Gnostics of Egypt and the early, who created the early Christianity in Egypt, they did not believe that Jesus was the Son of God. I mean, they didn't have this part of Son of God. They did not believe of the cross, that he died on the cross. They just speak about him, that he'd been killed by the priest, the rabbinic priest, the priest of Jerusalem. I mean, this is why. So there was a big conflict between this minority group of Banu Najjar, Judeo-Christians, and the main three Jewish tribes. They were completely against each other, but this was a minority. And it seems that this is because it is one of them who was married to Hashim, the grandfather of Muhammad, and Abdul Muttalib, his grandfather, and this was his mother. And so it seems that from his childhood, Muhammad was wandering around these ideas. He must have got some kind of ideas in his mind, which eventually came to material. So they believed, in fact, what he was saying in Mecca, it was exactly their teaching, which some groups, minor poets and so on, different members, were known as the Hanifs, and they believe in the one God and the same religion that eventually even some verses of the Quran, we can compare it with some poems of these people. It's almost the same. They talk about one God. I mean, they didn't believe in the normal Arabian deities. So in reality, they came to accept him because he was representing more or less what they say. And this is what Waraqa ibn Nawfal, the cousin of Khadija, identified him immediately when he knew that as the prophet of there. And they were expecting a Messiah to come. However, during his stay in Mecca, although he spoke about Mary and her son, which is in the Quran is called Isa, not Yeshua, not Jesus, not Joshua, but Isa. He spoke about that, but he never spoke about the Messiah, the Christ, while he was in Mecca. Now, these people came to him and told him, "Come to us, we'll protect you." So the first thing he did, he felt that he was not welcomed in Mecca and they were planning to kill him. So he sent the few followers he had, he sent them to Medina, and then he followed secretly. He ran away before they managed to kill him. When he went to Medina, these people, the Banu Najjar, took him, gave him a house, and made an area near his house for a mosque, the first mosque, Islamic mosque to be there, in their location, in their land. He lived with them and became one of them. In fact, he became eventually, they took him as their leader of the Banu Najjar group. In the beginning, Muhammad seemed to have, because there were three Jewish tribes in Medina, and two other Arabian tribes who are not Muslims. Only he had few Muslims coming with him from Mecca, and Banu Najjar completely adopted his religion automatically without, because it was their own religion. In fact, they celebrated the Passover. They celebrated the first time we have the Sunday prayer was in Medina, even before the arrival of Muhammad. There are a lot of indications that their belief is exactly what Muhammad was calling for. However, Muhammad in the beginning, not knowing the difference between the Jews and the Judeo-Christians, he thought that the Jews eventually will accept him, because the Jews also were waiting for their Messiah, you see. So he was praying towards the rock in Jerusalem in the beginning. For the first 2 years, he migrated in year 622. He migrated there, and he for first 2 years he he prayed towards Jerusalem, a rock in Jerusalem, and he announced a kind of a community, because Arabia at the time was composed of different separate tribal systems. So in Medina there were 5 or 6 different tribes. So he decided that all these tribes become one nation, Ummah, one nation, including the Jews and the Arabs who are not Muslim really. And he made them declared that these people were a nation and they'd be together against any other enemy. However, the surahs of the Quran that came in eventually in Medina included a complete identifying of the Son of Mary as the Messiah. Once he declared that the Son of Mary is the Messiah, the Jews, obviously the rabbinic Jews, rejected him, and they started even to help his enemies of Mecca. And because you see, when he left Mecca and some of his followers left Mecca, they left their properties there in Mecca. So when a Meccan trade caravan was coming from Medina on its way to Mecca, he fought them, and it was a different fighting for 3 or 4 times, fighting between the Meccans and Muhammad's followers, who became known as Ansar. The main people who fought for him were Banu Najjar. They became known later as Ansar, those who supported him. So at that time, the Jewish tribes were unfriendly, and they even tried to help the Meccans against him, because they realized he was not one of them. He was not, he's even against them. So eventually, Muhammad in Medina is a different man, you see. Then, we find that, he had to force some Jewish tribes to leave Medina, and other tribes were massacred, really. All men were killed and massacred. Although he himself married 2 women, and although all his life, when Khadija was alive for about 30 years, he never married any other woman. As soon as she died, he started marrying. The first wife he married was the daughter of his friend Abu Bakr, called Aisha, who was only 9 years old at the time. And eventually, during the stay in Mecca, in Medina, he married. His total the number of
Aisha was the first woman after Khadija to marry.
Was Aisha.
Okay.
Was 9 years old. She was 9 years old, and he married many other women, including one Christian, Coptic Christian. In total, he married about 13 women. The man who was more spiritual and not caring about sex and this sort of thing in the beginning. When he became about 55 of his age until his death, he became more really a different kind of man. He fought wars, he loved women and so on. And he grew up like that. Eventually, after defeating the Meccans, he was able to convert some other Arab tribes to Islam. Just confess Islam and became. So he enlarged his. After kicking the Jews out or killing them, he enlarged his community of Islam out of Medina to other tribal groups, and eventually, feeling strong now, he marched to Mecca during the Hajj period, and he entered the Mecca and conquered Mecca, and he became the master of Arabia. You see, and but however, soon later, in 632 AD. He went back to Medina and died in Medina at the age of 63. So Muhammad in Medina is no longer spiritual, but a man of fighting and a man of pleasure in the sense of physical pleasure.
So you said he killed and massacred the Jewish. What about the Christian?
He did not kill them directly, but he arranged for them to be killed. No, the Christians, there was no Christians in Medina. Banu Najjar was Judeo-Christians and they became Muslims. They became his followers, the first Muslims. They fought for him. They made him.
Did he kill Banu Najjar, his family as well, or he didn't?
Banu Najjar was the family of his grandfather. Yeah, and they adopted him. They took him because he was really, in reality, preaching their own religion, one God of Moses, the Torah of Moses, and so he then changed his direction of prayer, no longer to the rock of Mecca of Jerusalem, but he changed his prayer towards Mecca, also to unify the Arabian tribes who regarded Mecca as the center of the holy thing. So he divorced spiritually from the Jewish tribes, and he tried to belong more to the Arabians and regarded Mecca. And he even in the Quran he spoke about Abraham, the patriarch Abraham, as a long time ago, more than 1,000 years or so, took part with Ishmael, his son, in building the shrine of Mecca, the Kaaba shrine, and he did that. Now Islam was able, Muhammad, with his teaching, with his religion, was able to unite the tribes. Before him, the Arabian tribes used to fight each other for water, for food, for women, for anything. But now they were unified, and he died. He disappeared. He had high fever, and they tried to, use cold water to cure.
But why? But he was poisoned by his wife. No.
You see, he one of his two Jewish wives, he killed her father, and killed her husband, and he married her. So it is. One of the stories says that she poisoned him, but the poison was not. He did not die immediately from this poison. It took some time for the poison to get. It affected him, but it took some time for the poison to kill him. Yes, this is an important story, because I mean he forced her to marry him after having killed her father and her husband.
Raping her, like that's what I heard in some other stories. He married her, he killed her family, her tribes, and he was raping her.
He took her by force. Yeah, this is. They say marriage, but obviously it is not her will, because she was already married, and he killed her husband to take her. So that was.
And this woman was after Aisha.
Yeah, after Aisha. Aisha was the first one. Aisha was there, and they were all in the area he lived in Medina. He built a mosque next to which is now standing. The mosque is enlarged and standing, and all his house. He had a section for each one of his wives. All of Khadija died, but all his wives were living in the same compound in Medina,
and
including.
He didn't have any children from all his wives.
Now, as for his children, we have to leave this for another speech, because this is a big story, and there's confusion. But for sure, they say that he had 3 sons and 4 daughters from Khadija, who was 40 when he married her, 7 children. And then no other child from all the 12 wives, except the Coptic woman who had a boy. Abraham, we called him Abraham,
Hind, yeah?
but he disappeared.
Her name was Hind.
Ibrahim. No. We will come to this later, because it will. When we come to talk about the Shia Muslims and so on, because they think
that Muhammad had a wife from a lady, that's what I read, called Hind, and the boy was black, and he sent Ali to kill him because it was from her ex-lover or ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, they say that he sent a message.
His boy.
He sent a message to Egypt, to the Egypt at the time was ruled by the East Roman Empire, and the ruler there sent him 2 girls, really. So he took one of. They don't say that he married her. He took her as at the time you can have a slave or something, and the other woman. Her sister, but her cousin came with her, and because I have to explain this later on, but it seems really that Muhammad was not able to produce children.
To have children.
So when this woman, was not black or white, when this woman gave birth to a child, he realized.
Yeah, because he was not black, she was not black. We're not talking about.
It is not about the father.
No, but it's not his child, so he sent Ali to kill the boy.
No. We don't know how he died. All what we know is the child, as a baby, died. How did he die? There's no story to tell, but he died. And the story which we have, saying that he suspected that this was not his own child. He suspected. But there's no confirmation of anything. But obviously he must have suspected, because according to my understanding, Muhammad could not have any children, really. And all the children he got, who are called after him, are not his own, but his wife Khadija, who had married before him 2 men. So it is not. You cannot understand. You cannot realize that she married 2 men when she was young. She produced no children. when she
Until she got married to Muhammad.
was 40, she got 7 children from Muhammad, who himself got no other children from 12 women. I mean, Muhammad, that's why when this Egyptian Copt got him a child, immediately he suspected it could not be him, his father. So we don't know who, there's no account that he was killed, but there is an account that he suspected that this was not his own child. But the child died. Obviously, you can expect that he was killed somehow.
We will talk about his children in the next part. But why Muhammad changed the direction of from Jerusalem to Mecca? What was the
in
reason?
the beginning? He was hoping, because Banu Najjar was Jews, Judo-Christians, but he couldn't understand. He didn't know any background of the biblical account. The difference between Judo-Christians and Jews. So he thought they're all Jews together. So in the beginning, when he went to Mecca, he regarded the Jews. He spoke about the Jews in general as the believers. So he regarded them, and he was expecting that they will follow him, that they will accept him as a prophet. But this is why he took their own, and he even celebrated the day of the Exodus, Passover. He celebrated that. He called it Ashura. In Islam, they call it the day of Ashura, the 10th day Ashura.
And the Shia, which they celebrate.
It is important for the Shia. After that, we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
But this exactly is a celebration that the Jews celebrated at the time. The Ashura.
I heard Ashura is
for the Passover.
Is mainly for Jewish.
For Jewish tribe. So he was expecting really that the Jews will accept him. Only when it started to talk about Messiah, Jesus, the son of Mary as the Messiah, then they did not, it was not his first step. They rejected him. They thought that he is not ours. So they stood by, and they even tried to help his enemies. And then he started, and he had no, passion or compassion or anything. He just got rid of them.
So you want to say Jerusalem was not important anymore for Muhammad? So
No. Once he changed his direction of prayer from the rock to Mecca, Jerusalem meant the name of Jerusalem never appeared in the Quran.
So why is very important now for Muslim Jerusalem?
This is something different completely. It is important because you see. We have to talk about it now. All right. The thing is, the fifth caliphate, Muawiyah, was ruler of Damascus in the empire, Islamic Empire. He was the ruler of Damascus, and he was in a conflict with Ali, who was in Iraq at the time, and eventually Ali was killed, and Muawiyah of Damascus became the fifth caliphate in the Islamic Empire. Now Muawiyah, because when the caliphate was established, the state, Islamic State, was established with the head of caliph, which we would talk about it next time. The followers of Muhammad, the friends of Muhammad, the people who knew Muhammad, the elders of the community would gather and declare one of them as a caliph. Muawiyah did not like that. He wanted his own son to succeed him. So he wanted the elders of the Muslim community to agree on that while he is still alive, that his son Yazid will follow him. But these followers, these elders were living in Mecca and Medina, did not agree. They did not agree on that. So he sent his army to Mecca and he destroyed the Kaaba. The Kaaba of Mecca was destroyed by the Caliph, Islamic Caliph. So when the time for pilgrimage came, I mean, Muslims needed an area, a place, a holy place to visit. Instead of the Kaaba, they have to turn 7 times around the Kaaba during the Hajj. So his son built a dome over the rock. He built a dome over the rock, and he built the temple called Al-Aqsa Mosque. It was built in the 7th century. Later in the 7th century, by the grandson of Muawiyah. He built the Al-Aqsa Mosque. There was no Aqsa Mosque at the time. He built Al-Aqsa Mosque, and he built the dome over the. So Muslim pilgrims, while the Kaaba was destroyed, you see, used to Hajj, to go for pilgrimage in Jerusalem and go around the rock 7 times and so on. So some people, I mean, later confused this thing as if it was this is the holy place, and until now, really, some maybe for political reasons or for wrong understanding. Until now, some of especially Palestinians and other Muslims believe that this is this dome of the rock is the holy of the holies, like the Kaaba, and it's not true. In Islam, it's not true at all. In fact, when Omar, the second caliph, Omar, went to Jerusalem, and the time of prayer came, obviously the dome was not built yet. The remains of the Jupiter temple on top of the rock was there. So he was asked to pray towards the rock, and he refused. He said the rock is the holy of holies of the Jews. And he went on the other side and gave the rock his back to the rock and prayed towards Mecca. It is Jerusalem. I mean, according to Islam of Muhammad, not the later tradition, has nothing at all to do with Muslims.
Important.
No.
So, but here, Mr. Osman, we need to remind people that all of these informations will be in your book, right?
No, some of it is not in my book. Some of it is some of it is in my book already in a book I wrote with Robert Bauval.
What is the name of your book?
It is the Spirit of Ancient Egypt.
Okay, so all of this information will be in the Spirit of
in this
Ancient
book.
Egypt.
In the next book, I will talk about, I mean, obviously, about King David and Solomon and yeah.
But we need to finish this part. So next part
will be
on about the children of Muhammad.
Yeah, the problem about Muhammad's religion is not our problem now, really, because it's a religion, it's a belief, worship, and so on. The problem which we are facing now comes from the political Islam. And political Islam.
Believe what you want to believe is no problem, but the political
I
Islam
mean,
is the problem.
different people have different religions.
Yeah, no
so some people pray this way, or pray this way.
No problem.
It's no problem. You can believe in.
We are free.
What we have now is not one so kind of Islam. We have two kinds of Islam. Islam as
that's what we need to explain.
Yeah,
there is the two kinds of Islam.
Yeah, I mean, people who, I mean, because, for instance, this fanatics and who attack and kill people, they kill even Muslims, and because they think Islam is not praying. It's not worshipping and belief. It's not a matter of belief and worship. Islam, like Judaism, Christianity, and Buddhism, is a kind of belief and rituals.
Yeah.
You can pray, you can go to Hajj, you can do what you want. But they don't believe that this is enough. Sometimes they say this is not at all the important thing. They call jihad. Jihad means fighting. Yeah. They take some surahs, some
but
parts
why
of the.
They want to fight? Why?
They think it is. They believe that the end of days will not come unless all the universe become Muslims, and they believe if Islam,
the whole universe,
everybody will be a Muslim before the end of the days. They believe this is a condition, and they believe that it is if because they believe that Islam is the right religion, and they represent, they have a duty to force. You are wrong. You are almost a criminal. You deserve death if you don't agree. They believe they have the right.
Because of them, people are leaving Islam, so they're doing the opposite.
Some people are leaving Islam, but instead of leaving Islam,
instead of believing, you are running away from Islam.
And instead of that, we have to let people know what is Islam
exactly, from
and
the
what
history.
is political Islam.
Yes.
And political Islam is not really. Muhammad, until the day he died, never made a state. There was no state. If you want a state, you have to have a central government.
Yes.
with an army and
a leader.
and bureaucracy, and you collect tax from people, and Muhammad never do that.
Never.
He took the alms for the poor. He never had any army.
What he had at that time, if he didn't have any state?
He had a community, an ummah, a collect.
Sharia. Is it
No. Okay, I better leave that for later because it will take time. It needs time to explain it. And
please, we would like to remind people we will be talking and carrying on about this in the next part.
Next time we'll talk about how political Islam started. Yes. with the establishing of the state, Islamic State, or in fact with the fall of the Islamic State, when Ataturk in Turkey after the First World War in 1924 abolished the Islamic Caliphate, and then we have the movement of political Islam. It is a modern movement. They want to come to recreate the caliphate, the rule. They regard Islam.
So this is new Islam.
Is the rule.
Not the main Islam, Muhammad's Islam. This
No,
is
it is not Muhammad's Islam. Yeah, it is the state. We have to explain that. When we talk about the state and the Sharia law, we will understand. We will be able to understand what is the difference.
Yeah.
Next time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Osman.
Thank you.